Yeah, Coach. When you go forward, how do you think you might be changed by this season and this experience, and maybe in some ways be a different coach after all this?
Oh, you know what? I think there's a couple things. One is I think making adjustments on the fly. Like that is, we're creatures of habit, of routine, of, okay, here's what time the meeting starts, here's what time the bus is, here's what time the video starts, here's the lineup. And this season has provided a ton of changes. And whether that was a practice canceled late, a game canceled when you're about to get on the bus, okay, how do we adapt? And that, I think I'm a better coach from that, and a better planner, and a better leader from just being able to think quickly and make adjustments, and gather the group and talk to the people necessary, whether that's medical, whether it's management. Hey, are we able to practice today? We've had a false positive. Problem solving on the fly to make quick decisions, where normally in 95% of the scenarios in our profession, it's already laid out and you've had tons of time to think about it. So that we made countless decisions on the fly this year, where we had to adapt and make educated decisions when things changed on the fly. And sorry, did you have another point to that, Patrick?
No, that was it. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Patrick. We will go next to Pat Principe from WGA. I'll go ahead and unmute yourself. Prince, good to see you. Go ahead.
Good to see you guys. Good to see you for hopefully one last time for a few weeks or months.
Hey, Pat.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Hey, what was it, do you think, about the makeup of this team that enabled you to be successful under these very unusual circumstances?
Matt Molson, culture, character. Those are the things that come off the top of my head. I've had a lot of conversations today, just finished all of our individual exit meetings with all of our players. And I think a common denominator, a common theme of what a lot of guys said is there is a genuine, our guys want to win. And yeah, of course, every team wants to win, but there was a genuine feel of accountability to one another, that they wanted to do the right thing, and they wanted to, whether it was Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock, whether it was Wednesday in the practice rink in Newark, whatever the scenario, our guys and Matt Molson did an excellent job as our captain of dictating the message of, we're playing this season, whether there's playoffs or not, we want to win. And we want to win tonight in Newark in the practice rink. And we expect to win. And everybody needs to get on board with that. And it's not going to be 10 guys. It's not going to be 8 guys. It's going to be 20. And that's what I feel like our group consistently did night to night, is they had an expectation of one another. And like I said, I think that's a culture thing. I think that's the character and the makeup of the 25 guys we had on our team. I think that's a leadership with Matt Molson, Cameron Schilling, Scarbs when he was here, Phil Maillet. And so that's what I would attribute it to.
Thanks, Prince. Thank you very much for your question. Next up, we will go to Logan Reaver from ABC 27. Go ahead and unmute yourself and fire away, Logan.
Yeah, so Damon Turbin.
Oh, it's
here,
Damon. You're under Logan's account. I didn't look at your face. Okay, well, Damon, good to see you. Logan looks better than ever, so go for it.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Zach. You're always a true gentleman. But Pat just took a bit of my question, so I guess I'll change course here. Coach, this is your 3rd season here in Hershey, but I guess obviously the season presented different challenges and different end goals and things like that. I guess from a personal standpoint, how did you feel yourself growing as you finish year 3 here?
Oh, ton of growth. I'm a much better coach than I was going into this year, having dealt with some of the stuff that we talked about. And coaching different players, that's the other, when you coach different players, I find too, let me give you a specific example. So having coached Cameron Schilling this year, I learned a ton from Shills, okay? Because he's played for 9 years. This is his 9th year pro. He's played in multiple different organizations, Manitoba, Washington's organization years before, played in Chicago and Rockford. And so throughout our interactions and how I would ask him and say, hey, here's what we want to do here. Here's what we're going to do here. What did you do here? I learned all these different things about how he was coached by Pascal Vincent, the things that they did in Winnipeg and Manitoba, the style of play. And so where it comes into my coaching and why I'm better because of it is I had to find different ways to connect to Shills because he played a different way in Manitoba. He said, well, we did things this way, and this is how I played in the offensive zone, and this is what I would do on breakouts. And we did something different here. So what I'm trying to get at is all the different players that come in and you get to interact with and you learn from, like, I now feel like I'm better prepared to coach the next Cameron Schilling, if that makes sense, from an individual standpoint and a coach connecting with a player and conveying a message and being able to convey it effectively.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you very much for the question. Next up, go ahead and unmute yourself. We'll go to Brandon Alter from Capitals Outsider. Go ahead, Brandon.
Hey, Coach, can you talk a little bit about McMichael and kind of where he was at the start of the year and where he is now after his first year pro?
Huge strides that he's made, and a couple of examples. Number one, last 2 games of the season, league championship on the line, or regular season league championship, division title on the line. Best 2 games he's played all season. And not just the point production, not just the goals, both ends of the ice, his ability to get in on the forecheck as F1, willing to hold on to pucks and manage the puck and not throw hope plays, being able to play in the defensive zone down low, make those reads, close with urgency, all the detail stuff that's going to be so critical for his game at the next level. Best 2 games he's played all season. So that's number one. Number 2 is, and I've said this before, Mike's is an extremely coachable player. And what I mean by that is you tell him something once, it's in his game. And he's able to integrate that. You want him to be more aggressive. And now I'm not going to say that it's perfect and, he doesn't get away from it at times, but he's very receptive and can put things into his game that you ask of him, and is very, very intuitive and smart when it comes to being coached. So that is a huge quality to have when you're talking about, okay, now Peter's going to give you 10 different things that you need to think about, and Scott Arneal's going to give you 5, and then you're going to play on the power play, and Blaine Forsyth's going to give you 6 different things and a different breakout. And here's what, so that's where the brain part of it comes in, and he's shown a great ability there to be able to be coachable. And then probably just the last thing, I mean, his competitiveness, he's a gamer. He is a gamer in a true sense of the word. And when games get tight, when the game's on the line, as a 2001 born player that's 185 pounds, like, he's a dog on the bone. He's fights for separation. He wins a ton of stick. He's when games are tight, which they were for us all year, he's a gamer.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you think he's ready for the next level? And if he's not, what do you think he needs to do to be ready for the next level?
I do think he's ready, and I think he's going to challenge to play in the National Hockey League next year. The areas that are going to be a focus are the detailed areas of playing the center position in the National Hockey League. So face-offs, breakout routes, his down low coverage in the defensive zone, not the glamorous stuff of him going down on a 2-on-1 and making an excellent play to Brett Leeson that scores. Him finishing on a breakaway, separating, not those, because he's got that stuff at a world-class level. It's the little things that are going to become critical to playing the center position 200 feet in the NHL. And that's what he's come a long way with his habits, but something that he still needs to continue to ingrain in his game so it becomes automatic. So those little things of playing that position, which is as hard as any position to play in the NHL, playing center. I know D's tough. I know a goaltender is tough, but being a 200-foot centerman is a difficult position to play. So it's that detailed stuff that he's going to need to continue to focus on.
Very much, Brandon. We'll go next to Ali Berube from ABC 27. Go ahead, Ali.
Hey, Carbs, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm listening to you talk about Molson and McMichael and kind of like opposite sides of the spectrum there, right? With the age and experience. And to me, that's what made this team special, was just that, like how much of a variety of players you had. Sitting here looking at it, no playoffs, no Calder Cup, we've talked about it. Will there be what ifs in your mind about how far this team could have gone given how special this year was?
Yes. Yeah, I think the answer is yes. But I told the guys, I think I said this last night too, this year will always be remembered because of what's going on in the world, and then that there were no playoffs. And I think it'll be remembered fondly by our group. Will guys look back and go, we would have challenged for the Calder Cup and potentially won it? Absolutely. I think every guy in that locker room and every member of the staff will think that way. But I'm not a big, for me personally, the what ifs, you could say it about last year as well. I'm not a big dwell in the past. I'm not a big, if this would have happened, it's unfortunate, but I won't spend a lot of time thinking about it. I'll reflect back on the year, learn from it, think of things that we can do differently. How can we adjust this? And I'll talk to the staff and all that. But when we'll move on and in 20 years, you'll look back on this year, but it'll be moving forward to next year. And hopefully it's a full season and we're back to some bit of normalcy. And you make the point about Molson. So here's something interesting. And this is kind of speaks to Mike's too, is Mike's and Molson were, I think they were tied going into the weekend for the team lead in points. Am I right on that, Zach? So Mike's was he had a productive night last night. So he was giving it to Molson on leading the team in scoring. And that there's your, sort of your contrast of Matt Molson and Connor McMichael motivating one another. Both guys pretty invested in this season and trying to one-up one another.
Mike's is like close to almost being able to be his kid. That's what's crazy to me, But on that, how important is Molson, and has he been to your team the last couple of seasons? I know we don't know exactly what his future is going to be, but if it is back in Hershey for another season, how important do you think he is for the other players on this team?
He's so valuable, Ali. And we just wrapped up actually with Maddie. He was the last one of the player interviews. He just makes everybody around him better. And he's not he's a very quiet leader. He's not a rah-rah. He doesn't stand up and yell. He doesn't, have all these meetings and speeches and that's not him. He's a quiet leader, one-on-one. And then he shows by example, and I just told him, and part of one of the questions earlier was about the winning and why, and Mols right from the get-go was like, if we're playing a season, we want to win. Whatever it is, whether there's playoffs or not, we want to win. And that's what he expects. And so imagine that as a Connor McMichael or an Eddie Whitco or Will Graber or Hunter Shepard, the goalie, when you see Matt Molson, 500 games in the National Hockey League. Wow. And all your interactions with him are about Hershey and about winning and beating Lehigh Valley. And we got to do this to beat Binghamton. So you're automatically right away the captain, this figure that has had all this success. Everything is about Hershey and winning. So there's your lead, there's your message every day from the guy that everybody looks up to, and that just spreads like wildfire throughout your locker room. So there's an example of the value that he's brought our organization and then us as a staff, because we can say all those same things, but if it's not coming from your leadership group and people like Matt Molson, it's probably not going to be effective in getting through.
Valley for the questions. Joel D. Smith from CBS 21. You've been waiting a bit. Thanks for your patience. You can unmute and go ahead.
All right, my colleagues have said a lot of the good stuff already, so let's just get real specific here. When the schedule came out, 3 teams playing them each 150 times, pretty amazing. What did you learn playing these same teams over and over again? It's even more than it would be a playoff series.
Yeah.
Did you find things that were advantages you try to take advantage of every single time? Were the counter coaching more than ever? I feel like it's never going to be this way again. What did we find out from playing these same teams over and over and over again?
You know what I said the other day to Emily, as I said, I could be hired as New Jersey, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh's player. I know their players inside out. So if I know all of their prospects inside and out, I have watched hours and hours and hours of film on every single one and seen them live for hours and hours. It was interesting. It's an interesting point, because you do gain a book, and Emily did a fantastic job of keeping track of the adjustments that each team was making, whether it was face-offs, whether it was instruction through structure. Wilkes sort of changed their D zone partway through the year. So it was a little bit of cat and mouse, but I will say, for the most part, all 4 teams stayed pretty true. Like, we knew what type of game it was going to be against Wilkes. We knew what type of game it was going to be against Lehigh, and they're different. They're different teams. They're different the way they play. So that was also interesting to see. Our game against Lehigh, and here's an interesting thing too, is so it would take us a bit of time to get into a game with Wilkes. If we played Binghamton, Lehigh, and then we play Wilkes, it was like, it would take us a period. Oh yes, they're harder, heavier, it's more physical, it's harder to get inside, they shoot everything. It would take us some time to get back adapted to playing against that team, which is sort of weird, because in a normal season, you're playing all sorts of different. But you're absolutely right. We did learn about the teams, and you know what to expect, and you try to keep track of subtle changes that they were doing. But I will say, back to that point I was trying to make, that most of all 4 teams stayed pretty true to what they were doing in terms of their system and style of play.
Right. And it sounds like if any trades are coming in the future, you know exactly who you want.
Oh my gosh. Call me if you want to know on any prospects on any 4 of those teams.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Joel D. And I believe our final question, unless anybody wants to squeak in, we'd have time for one more after. Patrick Williams, you can close us out with one more. Go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, we all know how players spend the off season, like working out and different parts of their game. How does a coach spend his off season? And the second part to that is, you've obviously been familiar with Jay Leach and Ben in Syracuse. Are there any other coaches around the league that you would like to kind of pick their brains and build a relationship with?
Okay. Summer plan, coach, wife, kids, get reacquainted, and become back to a husband and a dad. I'm a love running when the weather gets nice. So I'm a runner, golfer. Kids activities will be a big part of our summer here in Hershey. And so that'll make up most of our summer. Swimming, take the kids. I love to do, not now, I try to make up for lost time and take our little ones to as much as I can. So some coaches, no one in our division, even though I would love to pick Scott Gordon's brain on their power play. I think he does a terrific job, and they have tons of adjustments in game, and You know, I shouldn't be saying that, but that's the coach in me that wants to learn. And our power play is phenomenal too. But I really they have a lot of adjustments in game, and they give us a lot of trouble. So it's interesting. And then there's another point to you're playing a team like they knew how we were going to kill, and we knew what they were. But there was a cat and mouse with the special teams. But back to your question of Ryan Warsofsky, who I coached with in South Carolina for years. I stay in touch with him and talk to him a lot. Other guys out west, like I've gotten to know because I competed against him, and we've had some conversations. I watched his NHL coaches thing, like that John Robolewski out in Ontario, and have monitored their team because him and I had a bit of a relationship when he was in Atlanta way back in the day. And then I'm always this, as you know, Patrick, the pandemic provided a unique opportunity to get to know. I got to know a ton of different coaches from a lot of these Zoom things. Ben Gruhl, one of them. So hopefully we're able as coaches, because I think it's such a great learning tool, and everybody's a little bit guarded with what they do, and they don't want to give up too much to the coaching fraternity. But I also think it's a great way to not learn system stuff, but just different ideas and different approaches. And so I'll continue to see if we can keep those going as the coaching fraternity through the off season.